Welcome to tonight's Speak to the Candidates Zoom forum on YouTube, sponsored by the Sanctioned Clubs in Canyon Lake. I'm Travis Montgomery, and I'll be serving as tonight's moderator. As a 20-year resident and former treasurer and president of the POA, I want to thank the candidates for stepping forward to run for office on the board and for participating tonight. I also want to thank the club representatives that are participating and who will be asking most of the questions. Representing the clubs tonight are the Coraliers by Larry Garland, their president, the Canyon Lake Women's Club by Alexis Prince, their president, Helping Hands by Robert Sasser, president, the Fine Arts Guild by Bonnie Dubbs, president, and the Bassmasters by Chuck Marino, vice president. I also want to thank Ron Martell, who in the language of video productions is the producer and director of tonight's event. In tonight's format, each candidate will have 90 seconds to introduce themselves. There will be 3 rounds of questions. Round 1, each of the club presidents will ask a question to be answered by each of the candidates in 60 seconds or less. The order of response will start with the same order as on the POA ballot. In round 2, I'll ask each of the candidates a question based on current issues facing the POA and/or candidates' campaign statements to be answered in 90 seconds. Round 3 will be the same as round 1 with questions from the club presidents and a 60-second response time. We'll conclude the evening with 90-second closing comments by each candidate, providing an opportunity to cover any issue they didn't get asked and to leave the audience with whatever message by which they'd like to be remembered. So if everybody's ready, let's get started. And we'll start with the candidate opening comments, again in the order that they are on the ballot. And we'll start with Brian Bach.
Good evening. I'll be brief. It's kind of simple. There are 3 spots to fill and 6 candidates, one of which is running for re-election, so there'll be 2 new ones. I will not say I'm the best. I will not say I'm the brightest. I will not say I'm the most knowledgeable of Canyon Lake. Been here about a decade. But I will say that I can bring things that virtually no one else can bring in the sense of my background, experience, knowledge of not just law, but law and public sector. And frankly, as I said from day one, my role is to be a board member. My role is not to control Canyon Lake. My role is to simply represent those who need a voice. My role is to do what is right, to do what is pragmatic, to do what is just and civil at all times. And the most important role I think that a board member has is to bring people together. And frankly, we've had some challenges with that this last year, and in particular this last 6 months. And so if I leave you with anything, it will be simple. It will be that I will work every day to make this board more transparent, more able to bring the community together, more focused, more legally focused, and pragmatic in its approach, and ultimately build the trust that I believe has been lost, unfortunately, this past year.
Thank you, Brian. Next to make his 90-second opening comments is Tim Cook.
Hello, my name is Tim Cook, running for POA board, Canyon Lake resident for the past 6 years. We're all good candidates, and there's lots of people running to fill the 3 spots that are available. We all have good intentions behind this and the reasons that we're running for the board. We've all got our individual, we've all got our aptitudes and things that bring something to the table, and each of us have a special thing. I've got, construction background, 40 years of construction background. I've owned my own company before, and just looking forward to bringing what I have to the table to aid in this whole process, listening to the people, being open to the people, and being accessible to everybody. Looking forward to serve the board and do the best I can at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And now Chris Foland.
Thank you, Travis. My wife Barbara and I moved to Canyon Lake in 2014. We've been married for over 50 years. We have 3 children, 7 grandchildren, and a very warm and vivacious family. I'm a registered structural engineer. I'm an earthquake engineering expert. I served as the CEO of a large structural engineering firm out of San Francisco. I worked there 40 years and was their CEO for 20 years. Grew that firm from $5 million to $30 million during that period of time. As you know, I'm the one that's running for re-election. I've served on the board for 2 years. I came onto the board with a promise of bringing new solutions, fresh thinking, re-engaging the board with the community, because we had just gone through a phase when the committees were mostly shut down or darkened, and the board wasn't really listening to what the community had to say. I believe strongly that the best way for the community to be heard is through the committee and club structure. And so we reached out, energized our committees, energized our liaisons, streamlined the connection between the board and the committees. And I believe that we've done a good job in making that happen. That still remains a huge effort. Transparency is at the heart of all of that. Communication and understanding and listening to all perspectives is at the heart of that. I also came with the idea that we needed to do a better job in our financial planning. The budgeting process worked well. I was uncomfortable with the way our reserve funds were being done. I wanted to make sure that there was a systematic way of doing the reserve funds, and we put that in place. I'm running because I think we've got a long way to go, and we need to work on those ideas and on other ideas as we move forward. I look forward to serving with 2 new directors, and from what I can tell, there's a lot of great new ideas coming along with them.
Thank you, Chris. And now Carl Gardner.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Carl Gardner. I'm running for the POA board. My wife and I moved into this beautiful community about 4 years ago now. We moved in because of primarily the lake and the equestrian center. My wife is a professional triathlete, so she takes great pride in being able to swim from our dock area all the way over to the dam and back in just a few minutes. It's quite an amazing feat. And I'm running for the board because members matter. It's a very simple platform. And the reason I think that members matter is because it's us. We're the money, it's our rights, and it's our amenities. And I believe the POA as an organization, as a company, has forgotten that. I really do believe that they think that we're just kind of their piggy bank. They spend money, they trample on our rights, and they really don't care very much about us. And that's exhibited anytime you interact with them on a customer service basis. I have been in customer service, business, and the military for years, and some of the things that they do as a POA would never be allowed in the real world of business. And we do have some good talent that's up for re-election, so I say vote for anyone except those rerunning. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. And next we'll hear from Bradley Foland.
Hey, everybody. I'm Bradley Foland. I've been a Prime member for about 1.5 years now, but my family has been a part of Canyon Lake since 1987. I moved here when I was 4 years old, and for a brief period of time, we moved out. When I first bought my first house, I moved out for 10 years to a neighboring community and realized real quick that me and my wife, wanting to start a family, there would be only one place that we would want to raise our kids, and that was the community that we were raised in Canyon Lake. So we moved back here, and quite frankly, a lot of stuff has gone on in the last couple of years, things that the community is I would say in an uproar, not really an uproar, but have concerns and issues about. And my platform on running for the board is to be their voice. I don't have a special interest in any decisions that I would be making if elected to the POA board. I want to solely be on behalf of every member, period. And I know it's a big feat the communication issue between the POA board and its members. But that's my main goal. I want to reach everybody in the community that is not getting all the information, and that's it. Everyone's voice needs to be heard, and we need, as a board, we need to take that in big consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Bradley. And our final candidate, Renee Griffiths.
She needs to be unmuted.
I'll start with, I'm Renee Griffiths, and I'm not technologically savvy with regards to the mute button. I apologize for that. I've lived in Canyon Lake for 4 years. I'm excited to be running for the board, mainly for 2 reasons. One, I'm in love with this community and the greatest asset, which are the assets of this community, which are the members. And I've heard from a lot of different people that they have great neighbors and the best streets. I think I've won that though, because I love my neighbors and they're phenomenal people. So I want to serve them. I want to serve you. My background is I am a certified financial planner. I love numbers. I love analyzing numbers, finding ways where we can save money, finding ways where we can generate additional revenue. So I'm excited to do that. I've been on the finance committee for a couple of years now. So I've had the deep dive into our finances, and I think there's ways that we can improve it. I've enjoyed being on a subcommittee that was created under this current or future or last board, a 5-year subcommittee, just to look at future expenses. And I think that's great insight that all future boards are going to be able to utilize to make the best decisions for our community. And my time's up. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee, and thank you all of the candidates for your comments. Now we'll start the questions from the club presidents. Again, in round 1, each club president will ask a question, and each of you will have 60 seconds to respond to that question. The first question tonight will be asked by Larry Garland of the Coraliers. Larry?
He's on mute too.
Larry, you need to unmute.
Here I'm telling everybody else to unmute. And
You're not alone.
all right, so we'll start over. What is your position on the timetable and priority versus other current projects for the repairs needed to our crumbling roads?
All right, and the first responder will be Brian Bach.
Okay. Well, I think first things first, we have to understand what A, the repairs are, B, the timeline. So with that, not having that in front of me, I'll go by what I know. I know that there are many people who have concerns with the roads right now. Many people don't realize the POA is responsible for the roads. So that's the first thing we have to understand. Bottom line is, I think in general, we have to reassess where we're now putting our money forward, or putting our money towards rather, and then take it in priorities. Similar to other projects, we might be doing things in phases rather than all at once. The biggest problem we face, and I assume it would apply to the roads, is the expenditure annually. And given that limit, and frankly, at this point, what I see is an unlikelihood of the ballot measure passing, I think we have to look at priorities. So tell me which road first, then we go from there. Bottom line is, if it's dangerous, we deal with that first and work from that way outward.
All right, and next to respond to that question is Tim Cook.
Okay, the roads need to be prioritized in order as to far as, the damage and the extent of the damage and where it goes first. To do this whole project, I mean, from my understanding, it's estimated from $20 to $25 million to take care of this. I do understand we have some litigation going on where some funds aren't quite accessible yet. And truly, until that gets resolved, we're not going to have the funds to do much. But it will need to be prioritized and done in sections, and do it in an order and in a fashion that we can afford to do the project and look at the areas that need attention first.
Thank you, Tim. Chris Foland, your response.
Those of you that have been in Canyon Lake for more than 7 years know that all of our roads were redone about 7 years ago. And at the conclusion of that project, we learned that we had a poor contractor, we had poor inspection, and we had a questionable design. It's been a lengthy lawsuit. There's already been a $5 million settlement. We are in the second group of people in litigation right now. Reports have been done. We know the condition of our roads. We know what the priorities of repairs are. We've published a schedule for that, a timeline in the budget book that's now available. It's going to be the worst cases first. We'll be spending $5 million a year for the next 2 years. That money is in the bank. It's not governed by the expenditure limits. The road reserve is exempt from that. And then there'll be, for the following 5 years, about $2 million a year that'll be spent to finish up the project and get us to a modest compliance. And then we're going to get to do it all over again because we own the roads, like Brian said.
Thank you. Carl Gardner, your response, please.
Thank you. Would you please repeat the question just so I remember exactly what you said?
Sure. It's what is your position on the timetable and priority for the repair versus other current projects for the repairs needed to our crumbling roads?
Okay. So I've been asked before, what is it that you'll do at the, what's the role of the Property Owners Association? And I've answered this probably 5 times in the same way: pave our roads. Don't get involved in other things before you get the roads paved. Existing infrastructure that we have needs to be our #1 priority. If we've built it in the past, we either need to decide to get rid of it. That would take one big vote, or we need to maintain it. If you don't like whatever the amenity is or whatever the asset is, then as a community, we need to say we need to get rid of it. But absolutely, we need to pave the roads. And there is an ongoing litigation. I read some of the complaint the other day, and it's complicated. So there's not much more to add to it, except that, yeah, absolutely, we need to pave the roads as far as priorities, infrastructure first before new projects.
Thank you, Bradley. And finally, Renee Griffiths.
Chris pretty much summed it up. So thanks for that, Chris. You kind of stole the thunder. We're going to have the road reserve estimate after the last lawsuit is finalized, and then we'll know what the real numbers are on the move forward. I agree with everyone who has pretty much said, if we start with the worst first. I know the current board, there was a picture, I think it was a few months back, they redid this one street already, and I had no idea how bad it could get. So they already started on that. But for me, the sooner we do it, the better. There's already over $9 million in that fund today. As of January, it was $9.5 million. So that's something that we absolutely need to tackle for the safety of the community, especially our walkers at the and some of the gaps in the road. So that's all I have. It was pretty much already said by everyone. So thank you for everyone for your comments.
Thank you very much, Renee. The second question from the club presidents will be by Alexis Prince of the Women's Club. Alexis.
Hi. Okay, so how would you propose to communicate better with the members? As I've seen in the past, people have tried it with Facebook, and that has been a disaster, because there's a lot of people that are very arbitrary with it. So just asking, how would you communicate better?
And the first responder is Tim Cook.
Communication is one thing that's definitely lacking in this community. Communicating with the members. I'd like to, somewhat try to do some sort of survey system. There's lots of things on Facebook, and I'm sure with technology we have nowadays that, get input from the community back on our own POA websites, other items like that, where we could get input from the community, put a broadcast up on a potential project and what do people think about this, and get some input back. Could be one way. Basically doing what I'm doing right now in my campaign, which I do a lot better than I do on video right now. But going out and talking to people directly, meeting the people, find out their needs, be available on the street, be available by phone. Everybody's got my phone number. I'm willing to give it out to anybody.
Thank you, Tim. Next to respond is Chris Foland.
As I mentioned in my opening remarks, improving the communication with our community has been one of my primary goals from the beginning. This year, the board has gone out of its way to send information out. It's been somewhat frustrating, I must say, because the information either isn't received or we don't get any response. We have open session board meetings, we have opportunities with email, we have opportunities for folks to communicate with us often. Looking for new ways to communicate. One of the problems with trying to communicate on Facebook, it's almost like standing in a crowd of people that are all pretty angry at each other and they're just yelling at each other. And it's very hard to communicate and get a consistent understanding of what the whole community is looking for. So looking for new ideas, the survey idea is a great idea, and we need to go from there. But there are some great efforts that's been tried.
Thank you, Chris. Next is Carl Gardner.
With respect, we will absolutely, the POA will start responding to members' inquiries with respect. Just today, I had experienced a 14 email thread with a representative of the POA over a very simple question, and they just absolutely refused to answer it. It was amazing. And that kind of thing needs to end. Everyone who works for the POA, if they're public facing, they need to answer our questions and they need to do it with respect. From a high level, if it comes to some sort of park proposal, if someone wants some big money spent, then there needs to be a survey system. SurveyMonkey is a very simple system to operate. When it came to recent issues, we could have easily sent out a survey to the people and gotten some great insight into what everyone's thinking. And that's what I've got.
Thank you, Carl. Bradley Foland.
The POA, or the board at least, or the POA in general, always has had an issue with getting in contact with its members, and it's been that way for a long time. Granted, they've made great steps in the communication efforts that they have now. We still have a faction of the community that isn't getting reached. Either they don't know what's going on within the community. A couple people I've talked to just within today, they had no clue about what's happening on this election. So as Tim Cook just touched on, a survey system would be great. I would like to look at a small little community outreach group that would be able to go out to people's homes and help facilitate the needs of, get ideas on how certain people want to be contacted. What's the best way for them to hear information? Because not everybody's the same. Not everybody is tech savvy to get to the sign up part for your notifications on all the things happening within the lake. So, but yeah, I mean, a gist of a survey system, I think, would be a great first step.
Okay. Thank you. And Renee Griffiths, please.
Thank you. I agree with everyone talking about using surveys, SurveyMonkey, or utilizing polls on Instagram, but that's only for people who are following. What I would like to see, I do get every single communication because I went onto the website and I said yes to everything. So I see it, Instagram, numerous emails. So it's a matter of getting everyone's email on there. And I think when we do have different events, it would be nice to have a computer there. I understand COVID, we got to wipe it down, all that other stuff, but allow people to opt in right there on the spot. I think that would help get more people who don't even realize that these emails are going out. And then in the future, of course, they can always opt out, but just to get them to opt in initially, that can be done when you're going into the POA for any reason. They could pull it up and see, are you getting our email communications? If the answer is no, at least we can say, do you want to do it? And have them opt in. And people go in often, whether it's boat registration, car registration, so we can try to get people that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. And finally, Brian Bach.
Yeah, I think it's a multi-level. So there's an issue with like technology communication and people who don't have technology, but the issue is really the substance of communication and the purpose. And what I'm finding, and I've lived here actually, short of Chris, the longest of the candidates, which I think is interesting in the sense that I've seen 10 years, I've seen progress, and frankly, technology progress, great. The issue is we put the progress, like it's one thing to post Sierra North is a beautiful park. The problem is when you did it versus when it should have been done. And frankly, before you build Sierra North, you need to ask people, is this what you want? Because people wanted a pump track. Now we have a $2 million project. The long story short is we need to refocus how we do the communication. Then we deal with technology and also the non-technology. I do beers with Brian, I'm going to do root beers with Brian. But the bottom line is each one of us as a board member needs to do more individually and let the POA do what they do. I got cut off, so I'll
Thank you.
leave it at that.
Thank you. Our third question tonight comes from Robert Sasser of Helping Hands. Robert, welcome.
Did he get on?
Yes, he's here.
Okay.
Unmute.
Thank you. I'm sorry I joined late. I had a little technical problem. My question is going to sound very divisive, and I do not intend it to be that way. I intended to understand your thinking. And so here's the question. An indicator of how you will vote on issues going forward is your political affiliation. Would you please state and tell us what your political affiliation is? Are you a Democrat, a Republican, an independent? What do you think? What do you want to tell us to help us understand how you're going to vote in the future?
Thank you, Robert, for your question. And I'm going to take the privilege of being the moderator and say that this is a non-political situation. It's a nonpartisan situation. And that's the way our board operates. And I think that that question would be out of order under that circumstance. So I'm not going to ask any of the candidates to respond with to your question.
So are you telling me that these candidates would be ashamed to say what they are?
I'm not telling you anything. I'm just telling you that I'm sorry, but I think the question is out of order, and I'm going to exercise my position here to make that point. And I will now move on then to the next.
Ask Robert if he has another question.
Do you have another question that is non-political?
What does it matter?
The choice is yours, sir.
All right, I'll ask, what community organizations, what clubs, what council meetings, what POA meetings have you attended? Have you been involved in the community rather than just all of a sudden jumping into this political arena that is political?
Thank you. That's a good question. And the first to respond will be Chris Foland.
Well, without surprise, I've been at every POA open session meeting for the last 2 years. I was a member of the Facility Review Committee when I first came to Canyon Lake. I was a member of the Dredge Committee. I was a member of the Men's Golf Club Board. I have been to city council meetings since I've been president because I briefed the city council. I can't do it tonight, but I briefed the city council about the status and what the POA is doing out of interest in trying to build a stronger bridge and relationship with the city.
Thank you, Chris. And next to respond is Carl Gardner.
Yes. So I have volunteered for every committee there is. The only committee to have gotten back to me, and I very much appreciate it, was the ACC. They actually wrote me a great letter. They explained the whole process to me, and it was actually the committee that I didn't want to be on. So no offense to them. Actually, I think they do a great job. One of the very few roles I believe that POA has is the ACC, besides paving the roads. I've also been very much involved in the triathlon club because my wife is a professional triathlete. I've been involved in the equestrian club. Unfortunately, that lasted a whole but one meeting. I have been very heavily involved in trying to get the POA to do the right thing in other aspects. And that has taken a lot of my resources. And I believe I will prevail in that. And we'll have a better community because of it.
Thank you very much. And next, Bradley Foland.
I am currently not involved in any committees or groups within the lake. being the fact that I've grown up here since I was 4 years old. I've used every amenity. I have junior golf trophies still sitting on my shelves in the house. I have all-star trophies from Canyon Lake Little League. But as far as groups or committees, I'm not joined up with any at the moment. I've attended POA board meetings or watched them on the chance that I couldn't attend them live for the last year and a half, ever since I bought my property in here. And quite frankly, the reason for me running now, it spurred from the first due increase when COVID-19 hit. I think it was irresponsible of the board to implement that at that time. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter what political position we have as board members. What the right thing is to do is to make decisions on behalf of the community as a whole. And my beliefs stop at my front door, and that's what I'll say about that.
Thank you. Renee Griffiths, your response, please.
For volunteering or being part of the community, I've been on the finance committee since 2019. Board meetings, I would say I've been attending since at least the last 3 years. I still remember when Dale was president. So at least the last 3 years, I do enjoy them. And while hot topics are never great, I love the amount of people that attend the board meetings during that. So that's always a nice thing to see. I'm also on the yacht club, so a little advertisement for the yacht club. And I'm now the yeoman of the yacht club, which is a fancy way or sailor way of saying I just take notes. But I have a great time on that. It's a good group of people. Outside of Canyon Lake, I have this quick second. My passion is more volunteering, and I've done stuff with foster teen ministry before we moved out here, and I carried that on while I moved out here, and that took up a lot of my time. So.
Thank you very much. And next, Brian Bach.
Okay, so I will preface with probably the most important thing I've done in the community was not a committee. It was an idea, and it was an idea spurred by, frankly, the disbelief that 9/11 could be canceled in New York. And so we created something here very special. It's not a committee. It was an event. It's an event that's going to be annual, and it will go on in perpetuity. And I actually met Mr. Cook through this, and whatever happens in election, we built a bond that will exist for the rest of our lives. I was also asked to be on the Lake Lease Committee with the litigation. And I'll preface by saying I was honored to serve, and serve did I do. Many meetings, much time. I've also been manager in the Little League, and we are in countless events, groups and clubs, family matters, and family golf and things like that. In the end, Donald Trump was never on a committee. Arnold Schwarzenegger was never on a committee before they served in office, and did fairly well.
Thank you very much. And finally, Tim Cook.
At the current time, I'm vice president of the Canyon Lake Veterans and First Responders Group. We just turned in our paperwork to be a sanctioned club through the POA. Through the years I've been here, I have actually attended board meetings when we used to meet at the discussion meetings when we had at the holiday ballroom there. I've asked questions before. I've been involved that way. Since we've been through COVID, I've been watching every meeting for the last 6 months at least. One due to boredom of COVID, but one because I have become more interested in the public. I have gone to finance committees. I've gone to the finance committee. I've gone to the recreation committee. I was a big part of 9/11 with Brian Bach, and that event was the high point of my Canyon Lake life here so far. I'm very proud of that event and getting the community together on that.
Thank you. And we'll now move to the fourth club president, Bonnie Dubbs of the Fine Arts Guild, for her question.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. Thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight and to educate us on what your beliefs are, so we can get a better understanding of who we want to be on our POA. My question would be, as a POA director, what would be your highest, most urgent priority?
And the first person to respond to that question will be Carl Gardner.
Great question. would absolutely say automation of processes, looking into outsourcing a lot of the function of our POA organization. A lot of the managers that we have in the POA have never run the departments that they're now in charge of. They've never been out in the real world doing the job that now they have the job for in the POA, which is kind of mind-boggling. And for instance, we have 2 restaurants that are constantly losing money. Why not? And this was before COVID. Why not lease those restaurants out to private entities and just lease the land to them, lease the buildings, and then we just take money as a leaseholder. Those outsourcing and efficiencies would be absolutely #1 thing to look at.
Thank you. Next to respond will be Bradley Foland.
I think my biggest issue, or my biggest thing I would want to tackle first, is the communication with the community. I think any step forward that we do, considering spending projects, you know, just like Carl touched on, our profit-making businesses that are not making a profit, let's get the community involved and get their ideas and thoughts on what we should do to fix those situations, and what should we be spending money on now. It's not my opinion, it's the community's opinion that matters, and that's my focus.
That's not the question.
I'm sorry? The first priority as a POA board member?
Yes. Thank you. I think you responded adequately. Thank you. The next person to respond is Renee Griffiths.
The first thing, there's 2. So the first thing I want to do, just because it's what I love, is I want to dig into the financials. I want to look at some of the things that we're earmarking money for that we can tighten up. For example, the dog park, it looks beautiful, but I don't want to spend almost $100,000 on a large dog park, even though I have a large dog. The other thing, it's more of the heartstrings in the building of the community. It's a Club Rush Week and getting that going. Family Matters had done that. It was canceled the first time I was going to go to it, so I was bummed that day. But I think that's the best way to build communities, to get people out joining different groups. So to providing COVID and all that other fun stuff, but have that out there to just get people back to becoming one as Canyon Lakers versus division based upon politics or anything else, but just becoming one. And I want to focus on getting that done. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Next to respond would be Brian Bach, please.
So people say to me, which is your biggest issue? Is it the North Lake? Is it the dues? Is it this? And term length and what have you? And I keep saying to people, it's all of those. And why? It's because unfortunately, there's been a loss of trust. And ironically, President Obama said it best, and I don't normally quote from him, but if the people cannot trust their government to do the job for which it exists, to protect them and promote their common welfare, all else is lost. And so the irony in that statement is, unfortunately, this last year in particular, it's that we have lost trust. And no offense to anyone who serves on the board, because it's the board and the POA and the way things are done and failed to be done. I didn't see a yellow go up. Oh, so in any event, I wrote more about this more recently, but in sum, I think it's the #1 priority is to build back the public trust, open things up, discuss things more in advance, and not just post something that's pretty and looks great, but show them why we need it and how.
Thank you. Tim Cook, your response, please.
Okay, I too have 2 issues that are high on my priority list. You know, one is obviously, like, I totally agree with Brad. You know, communicating with the public is priority #1. Getting unity back together in this community would really solve a lot, get a lot more people involved. And also agree with Renee. I mean, Renee and I have spoke about this many times. Working together in a committee and working together with the POA board, the managers and stuff we have to look at these projects, reevaluate all the projects that we have. Do we need to spend X amount for a project? You know, really see where we can cut costs, try to keep costs down as much as we can, and you know, really dive deep and not just talk. Really get into the paperwork of it and look at every aspect of the finances to see where we can cut back and cut costs.
Thank you. And our final responder, Chris Foland.
Yeah, I think it's the most urgent thing that we have to do is to try to figure out how to restore peace and unity in our community. I think that that's important for us to look out at the whole community, recognize that we're a community of communities, and that each of these communities has very, very strong opinions about what they want, and that all those opinions don't necessarily match up with one another. We do have processes that we go through with every one of our projects. The pump track has been on the books for 5 years. It was approved by a board 4 years ago. We've been carrying forward with the design and moving forward with that. The pump track community wants that project desperately. The dog park community wants their 2 dog parks, small park, large park. They came forward with the ideas. They have been processed through the committees. But to me, the most important thing we've got to do is to get our vision, understand what we want to be, and then move together toward that vision. We can't do it individually.
Thank you, Chris. And our final club representative is Chuck Marino of the Bassmasters. Chuck?
Yes, good evening. Okay, it's no secret that we are surrounded by thousands of new homes on our borders of Canyon Lake. And most of those people want to come in Canyon Lake and use and abuse our amenities. If elected or re-elected, do you support enhanced security and, do you support enhanced enforcement of our private gated community? Examples, gate access, lake use access, parking enforcement, and how would you achieve this?
Thank you for your question. And first to respond will be Bradley Foland.
Hey, thanks, Chuck, for that answer. You know what? It's a good question to bring up. The new security company that is starting right now. I heard the manager speak last night on the POA board meeting. He seems to be on top of an agenda that he wants his security officers to follow. He seems to be on top of things. There's a lot of new things going on that he wants his officers to do on a regular basis with more patrolling. And as far as lake use amenities, I kind of know what you're trying to touch on. I want ideas from you guys, the Bassmasters, the common homeowners within Canyon Lake that use the lake for fishing. If you have guests come in just to use your fishing lake, could it be a thing where they need to be with a member? I don't know. It's my opinion, but it needs to be the community's opinion on how we go with that answer. All right, thanks, Travis.
Okay. Thank you, Bradley. Renee Griffiths, your response, please.
I'm excited to see the new community patrol that's out. I know they are paid more in wages, and that's part of the research that was done to see how we can improve our security. So paying people more usually and getting a team that's willing to do that hopefully will help with that. Chuck, I was really upset when we chatted earlier today and I heard you talk about the poachers. That ticked me off. That just says it politely. So that something absolutely has to be done. And similar to what's already been said, we have to rely on you guys to give the best guidance as to what's going to help our lake and to stop the poaching. Certainly Marine Patrol during the day when they're there can be checking on the boats and doing all of that. And then when it comes to people coming in the gate, one of the things you mentioned is if the kayaks are coming in from outside, they need to be pulled over because in order to have a kayak, you need to have a sticker, but they should also be inspected just in case if they were kayaking in another lake and bring their little creatures into our lake. So,
thank you, Renee. Brian Bach.
Okay, I think in short, we need to reassess, although it sounds like we're in the works with the new company or, the new version of the security company force. It's going to be, frankly, in my opinion, up to them, but up to us to oversee. We can report here and there, and Chuck, you bring us, something of your concern, but in the end, we're not seeing thousands of people influxing. I mean, the gates are secure, relatively speaking. But what I have seen over the years, and I've heard more than seen, is the inconsistency in approach by security officers, the lack of really almost like desire. And then, of course, sometimes the one who might have desire doesn't know what to do next. And so rather than call security, you call law enforcement. I think the city and the POA need to work better together. Years ago, the outlandish concepts of an active force was proposed and put aside because of costs and logistics and so forth. We need to maybe re-explore that. I've always felt we are kind of doing two jobs at once, if you know, active versus passive enforcement. Bottom line, training and working, being more consistent by our POA guards.
Thank you. Tim Cook, your response.
Yeah, I too really anxious to see how the new POA security is going to work out. And I was impressed with the manager the other day listening to the board meeting. Grateful for the input there. You know, the biggest thing is, again, working with the clubs, communicating with the managers, communicating with the residents, and finding issues, finding where we have the problem, and getting that communication rolling so that we can get back to the managers of the security team, get back with these people and get response and you know, tackle these issues one at a time. There's a lot of things that are high on the priority in the security list. And, you know, we're going to have to just work one by one with this new security company to get them realigned and get them back, you know, where the residents want to feel safe and where they want to be.
Thank you. And Chris Foland.
This is a kind of a two-edged sword here. We can hire with our security company, and I'm very proud that they're here, and I really have great expectations, as you all do. We can hire more patrolmen, and we can double the number of people on the street, and we can double the amount of enforcement that we have. And of course, that comes at a pretty high price. And when you compare the cost of that against the cost of some of the projects that are under controversial discussion right now, those things have to be considered. But the other side is everybody that comes to this community, maybe with just a couple of exceptions, has to be called in by a member. And our members need to recognize that our rules are in place. Our community wants these rules. They want them enforced. They shouldn't bring people in here and allow them to sit on the lines and poach our fish. But we need a higher level of communication, and we need a higher level of cooperation from our residents. And boy, I tell you, we need some new ideas about how to get that to happen.
Thank you. And our final responder, Carl Gardner.
So as far as enhanced, I'm not sure what you mean by that, but I believe we do have enough rules in the books, and part of the role of the POA's security company is to enforce those rules. I watched the meeting the other night, and I'm stoked that a fellow devil dog is going to be at the helm here. I believe that he will be enforcing the rules and making sure his guys are not arbitrarily enforcing rules that the POA shouldn't have any business dealing with. As far as poaching, there is a number you can call. It's the for the BLM rangers to come out and stop poaching. If somebody is on a dock who's a guest and they're put a pole in the water and they have a license and they're a guest again, that's not poaching. So I think defining what you mean by poaching would be a great idea. Aside from that, we just need to enforce the rules that we already have in place.
Thank you very much. We're going to move ahead now to round two. And in this round, I'll be asking the questions, and each candidate, I'm going to ask one question to each candidate, and each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond. My first question goes to Renee Griffiths. Homeowners cannot vote on every issue. So how would you most effectively understand the silent majority versus those who speak the loudest?
Members do have a voice, and I've put this in Facebook, although not everyone sees Facebook, I understand, and I've been doing this for years. When they are upset or they have something to say, email the board. So we do have a way to, especially if they can't make it home in time to attend a board meeting on a specific issue, to email the board. If there's a decision made, usually there's that there is a 28-day reading for a rule change, email the board. That's the best way we're going to hear. Give us a call. So I want to continue to encourage, whether it's advertising in the Friday flyer to reach the people who still grab the paper, getting the Friday flyer back to everyone as part of just being in Canyon Lake so we can reach the entire community, and leaving it to them as their responsibility to open the paper, certainly posting it to Facebook. But people need to let us know, certainly on specific issues, like if it's something that's going to involve the bat or affect the Bassmasters, we're going to have to reach out to them, and we absolutely should before we even think of anything, because I don't want to come up with what I think is a great idea, but I know nothing about fishing, and Chuck looks at me going, that was the dumbest thing ever. So we have to reach out to those who know what they're doing, know what they're talking about, and get their input first, and then reach the community by encouraging people continuously to email or call us. Thank you.
My next question is for Bradley Foland. How would you address the needs and wants of the people without giving in to increased fees?
That's a great question. My goal is to not give in to increased fees. And with 5 people on the board, we all have different ideas and different backgrounds, and to be able to dive right in and where can we cut costs to alleviate that problem of the constant need to raise dues. That is a big question. And, Renee would be a perfect person to be on the board to tackle that situation. And I would love to work with her if elected. And quite honestly, we need to dive right in and see where we can cut the fat.
Thank you. Next question is for Carl Gardner. You said, I will reduce membership dues by conducting an audit. How will your audit differ from the current annual audits?
It's a great question. And I was asked this the other day. And what I mean by audit is actually physically going in and looking at what this was in terms of operations. Look at what operations is doing and look at how they're doing it. And is it efficient or is it not? Is there waste? Is it what they should be doing, or they should be doing something else? So how is it different than what they're, so I think what I could have clarified a little bit better in that statement was there's a difference between a financial audit and a managerial accounting audit. My background in terms of finance is more on the managerial finance side rather than financial accounting side. So when someone thinks of audit, they think more of the financial side. Mine is more the managerial side. So in terms of, like I brought up before, potentially outsourcing or leasing the 2 restaurants that we have, I believe that would be a possible revenue generator rather than those 2 restaurants just burning through dues. And when it comes to other efficiencies, somebody brought it up to me today about, his point's very important, but we can't not raise dues. It's impossible, but we could raise fees for uses such as boat registration if it meant that the dues for everyone stayed the same. And that's the only way you can actually not raise dues, is by raising fees. So if that's what the people want, then that's what the people want, and we'll have to ask them.
Thank you. My next question is for Chris Foland. How would you modernize the CC&Rs and other governing documents in this transitioning community?
Great question, a real passion of mine. I am the committee liaison between the board and the ACC. Our CC&Rs right now are aimed at making sure that we have an attractive community, and that people get permits for what they do, and that they do it in a manner that makes it attractive. We're a 50-year-old community, and we have within our community many CC&R violations that honestly are things that have been here for a long time and have been approved by previous boards. Streamlining that process is to look back at our CC&Rs and find out which ones are really important to us, not what was important to those that wrote those things 50 years ago, and get those modernized. One of the things that's in there is a limitation on occupying space below 1397 in elevation. There was some thought that had to do with the FEMA floodplain. FEMA floodplain is down at 1380. What this does is it makes all those downslope lots that have homes that have areas underneath their decks that could be occupied, not occupiable. And you have to ask yourself, why do we have that? On our corner lots, we have a rule that says the front of the house is the narrow side of the house, regardless of where the front door is. That's something that we need to have a look at. And we have the whole thing with the 6-foot fences. The idea is to modernize these CC&Rs to make them achieve what we want them to achieve without unnecessarily burdening our membership, new members coming into the community, or costing them money that we really don't need to have spent.
Thank you. Tim Cook. Many are in Canyon Lake due to its quality of life and living standards. How would you maintain or improve the community without increasing dues?
First of all, basic math things here, going back to being 62 years old, running a household since I was 18. If I don't have it, you don't buy it. Stop spending, slow things down a little bit. As we've gone this last couple of years, we've been spending rapidly on several projects at a time instead of spreading them out as we can afford them. And, I do believe we can get through a couple of years without dues increases. If we manage what we have in a better way, don't spend beyond our means. If we go out to bid and we look at projects that are, our budget per se is $200,000 project. It goes to design and engineering and it comes back and, great plan here, but this thing's a $350,000 project. We can send that back and we can say, let's live within our means. Let's live within our budget instead of going beyond that and, to something that just looks great. We set aside a certain amount that we plan on spending. Let's stay within that. If we don't have it, don't spend it, or do it when we can't afford it at a later time, instead of tackling too many projects at once to where we are having to pull money from reserves or having shortfall fund reserves. Be conscious with our money and spend it as we can afford to spend it.
Thank you. And my last question is to Brian Bach. There seems to be an increase in political animosity on community social media lately. How do you think the POA board should address this?
Well, it's answered in a couple different ways. The board itself has a difficult time addressing as a whole. We have conditions and laws. As individuals, each board member has controls on what they can say or when they say it. The bottom line is it's more about hearing people rather than addressing them. And frankly, I don't find it effective to address everything all the time directly on Facebook if you're going to talk about our main social media. What I've done, and I will always do, is have an outlet, for example, my Be the Change or my email or my text messaging, which people, believe it or not, have used a lot recently. And I've also done is reached out to people. So I saw some comments about things where someone may have said something that, for example, took something I said and said, well, what do you mean by that? And I said, you know what? I want to explain that to you. And that's what I do as a regular basis. On a regular basis is I reach out to people. I'm always open and I'm not afraid to face difficult decisions or discussions rather. I grew up in New York, so, it's all, it starts there. And then, that's where you learn from how to talk to people. It helps over a meal, by the way. And at a minimum, maybe a pizza. But I was gonna say, what I've done recently is had those discussions and actually talked to people about, for example, creating a bipartisan committee, regardless of how the rule finally comes out, if we're talking about that, but getting people involved in the unification as opposed to the division.
Thank you very much. And now we're going back to the format of the club presidents asking questions of the candidate. And we'll start with the first question now will be from Chuck Marino of the Bassmasters. Chuck?
Okay, hello again. And I'd like to clarify what I said in my first question regarding poachers. That would be somebody that's not just coming into a lake and poaching the lake. That would be poaching our amenities. A non-member coming in and abusing our amenities, whether it be a beach, a park, a tennis court, or a pickleball court. I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, so my second question is, and I'm going to make it simple for you. If elected or re-elected, what's the one thing that you would like to see changed in this community and why?
All right, and the first responder to that question will be Chris Foland.
That's a tough question, Chuck. One thing, we've got a list. I keep a list of all the things that I hear about and the things that need to be taken care of. Certainly, communication and getting understanding and getting people to believe that they're being heard is extremely important, but I honestly don't know how to do that. You can't talk to 11,000 people. You'll get opinions that are on all ranges. I get hundreds of emails. Try to respond to the ones that come to me personally. What's the one thing that I wish I could change? I wish the community could come to a better understanding about how we can operate and how we have to operate and how we need to reach out and try to find middle ground for our whole community in all the issues that we face. Every issue that we've had has people on extreme, has people in the middle, has a silent majority, and I wish I could figure out how we could reach out and communicate to all those and get everybody to be happy, though I'm not sure that it's going to be ever be possible to make everybody happy.
Thank you, Chris. Carl Gardner, your response, please.
Yes, so we are not ever going to make everybody happy. That's not going to happen. And what we need to do, though, is absolutely focus on what the POA should do, define that, and then do it, and do it really, really, really well. Do it radically well, and stay out of everything else. Simply stay out of it. Pave our roads and stay out of people's ethical businesses. And by doing that, it'll make people happy. People like when they're left alone. And if they want to communicate with the POA will do it in a respectful way. They'll answer their questions. They'll tell them, thank you for being a member, and we'll move on.
Okay. Thank you, Carl. Tim Cook, your response, please.
Here again, kind of agree with Chris. There's lots of areas, but you know, I've got a pretty simple answer to this. We designed our front gates and everything, and we took away a flagpole. I don't see why, and we need a flagpole put back up at our gates, and that's the one thing of all the remodels and things we changed. I would really like to see a flagpole put back up at our main gate. I'd like to see a flagpole at every gate come entering the property. Pretty simple. Communication is a big issue, but you know, that's something I think in that remodel project that got taken away, that so much input from the community that I've gotten that they want that back, and I want to do what I can to get that back.
Thank you, Tim. Bradley Foland, your response, please.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we all moved into Canyon Lake, and I think everyone can agree on this. We all moved into Canyon Lake because of what we have, not what we can change it to. There's a lot of things that I'm sure the community would like to see changed. I personally, I don't like the fact that we have businesses that we run within our lake that do not perform at a profit. And I would really like, if that's one thing I can change, I would like to switch those around where they're cash flow positive and create some new revenue for the lake that's not just coming from us, utilizing the golf course, bringing in more public money than just from out of our pockets. And, you know, quite honestly, I would love to not change anything else in the lake. I love it the way it is. And I think we can all at least agree on that.
Thank you. Brian Bach.
Yeah, I feel that the question's been, as we say in lawyer world, asked and answered a couple of times on various levels, from transparency and trust, things like that. So I'm going to go on a limb and say on day one, I want to do something that besides those things. And on day one, I want to involve youth more. And so it's like you almost need 5 different top priorities because there are so many. So my other top priority is simple, and no one's spoken to this, and frankly, I haven't seen much on the subject. We don't have something like a youth center. I had one when I was growing up. I know at time we had one a while ago for a month or a year or something down below the lodge for a couple of times. It might have been Family Matters or someone ran something. Bottom line is, I think we need to involve our youth. We need to create a committee, and I have an outlandish idea, which is simple. We put a youth advisory board together. We give them powers to give us information and input, and we put one of them on our board as basically an honorary position. School boards do it all the time. Bring our youth into Canyon Lake rather than having them out there at the beach or whatever at night. Get them involved.
Thank you. And our final responder, Renee Griffiths.
Well, now I'm upset with Brian, and I shook my head as soon as you started speaking and where you were going, because that's where I was going to go. So now I'm a follower. Right? Someone ordered the exact same thing ahead of you. So with that, and this was one of the questions that was asked by the Canyon Lake Insider, and I responded to, my passion is teens mainly because I worked with foster teens, and whether you're a foster teen or a regular teen, teens just want to be felt like they're valued. Because once you hit 12 or above 12, there's a lot of things that you can't do anymore. Your mom's not, you just want to be on your own. So I went down and I actually chatted with some of the teens that were skateboarding at the tennis park. You can look at all their responses and what I put on the Canyon Lake Insider. But bottom line, to make a place cool for them, because that was the first thing, when I first said teen center, they gave me this look like I was an old stupid lady. But then I asked, what would be cool to you? And they said billiard table, ping pong table. I agree with Brian. We already have a building with air conditioning that we can carve out, whether it's part of the lodge or another location. I don't think we need to wait to build something. I was speaking with another gentleman about this, and he's like, I can raise that money. We can get that. So it's not get those items funded in or put in. So it's not that we even have to wait for the POA to spend money or approve money. There are amazing people here who are more than happy to open their wallets to buy the ping pong tables, buy the things that are necessary to give kids a place to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next question from the club president will be Bonnie Dubbs of the Fine Arts Guild.
Hey, what is your position regarding POA sanctioned clubs over other clubs, organizations, or individual members requesting amenities?
All right, and the first responder to that question would be Carl Gardner.
Oh, great. So to raise revenue, I think we can work with non-sanctioned clubs, and I believe this is your question. We can work with non-sanctioned clubs if it means raising revenue. So if they want to rent something, if they want to rent an amenity, then it can be put on a calendar and we can raise revenue in exchange for allowing that particular amenity to be used. For instance, the amphitheater. You're with the Fine Arts Guild. I'm sure you're very well aware of the amphitheater. Unfortunately, it sat. Here's an example of how our management doesn't know what they're doing. It sat for a whole summer with a chain link fence around it. Why? Well, because the city and the POA disagreed on whether or not a permit should have been pulled on that. Probably a bad idea to argue about that. So yes, absolutely. I think you can have non-sanctioned club use our amenities.
All right, and the next responder would be Tim Cook.
Not sure the direction we're going with this question, but sanctioned clubs do have some priorities over non-sanctioned clubs. They do offer discounts and stuff from my understanding at the POA. It takes a lot of work to become a sanctioned club, going through this, and I think to Casey Castillo, really helping the Canyon Lake Veterans and First Responders Group get their 501c3 accomplished. There's a lot to it to be a sanctioned club and all that work that goes into that. And there are some benefits of being a sanctioned club. And I see that there's, pretty much a fair issue with that if they have priority over, rental space or something like that for an event. So I think the rules are set fine the way that is at this time.
Thank you, Tim. Bradley Foland, your response, please.
I don't have a lot of experience with this question. I do agree with what Tim said. There is a lot to go in, or a lot that does go in making a club. My sister-in-law is currently making one up for cancer awareness within the lake, and it's quite a task. So as far as giving priority to our sanctioned clubs, just like Tim said as well, it's in our bylaws. I think we should just stick with it right now. I don't have a real issue on that, but I would love to hear from the community if they think otherwise. Once again, it's not my opinion, it's their opinion that matters.
Thank you. Brian Bach.
Yeah, I just texted, can the question be repeated? I'll use that first.
Yeah, Bonnie, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll repeat
It's hard
it.
to understand because it kind of trailed off and I didn't maybe hear it all.
Okay, so what I want to know is what is your position on regarding the POA sanctioned clubs over other clubs, organizations, or individual members requesting amenities?
Having priority.
So it's a question about priorities and about it, not whether we have people like, for example, 9/11 wouldn't have existed if it had to be a club first. We just had an idea a bunch of people got together. So in terms of requesting amenities, I think that is all set already. I know that we, a couple of years back, looked at, renting out a facility or something like that. And I think there's different pricing, there's rules, requirements, and so forth. I don't know that this is, obviously it must be an issue. You wouldn't be raising the question. So I haven't seen it come across my desk, so to speak. But in the end, I don't know that priorities, if it's not in the rules right now, then I would be remiss to say we should have priorities, for a sanctioned club on Tuesdays instead of somebody who actually put in the paperwork and so forth, et cetera. So I think that might answer your question. I'm generally big about, like, if the rules are there, then use the rules. And if they ain't broke, don't fix them. And if they're broke, let's look at that. So if it's an issue, we need to look at that maybe through committee and so forth, and then work it through that way.
Okay, thank you.
Renee Griffiths.
Well, I'm just going to agree with what everyone said, because they've said it really well. I will tell you, attending the meetings when they were coming up with the requirements to be considered a sanctioned club, I remember sitting through the process, not familiar with what was going on. So I wasn't in a club at that time, just on a committee, but listening to that, and it seemed well thought out. I don't recall any pushback from other clubs. It was just a lot of hoops for them to jump, and they jumped through them in order to be considered a sanctioned club. So if there is a challenge with that, and if it's priority amenity for someone, my only concern would be if a non-sanctioned club reserved, let's say Holiday Harbor, and now a sanctioned club comes in 3 months later and wants the same date, same time, and they get booted, that would be a concern of mine, because I know there's a lot of planning, sanctioned or not sanctioned, for an event. So I would just want to hear from the people and see what the concerns are, if there are any. Thank you.
Finally, Chris Foland.
Yeah, the big issue here goes back a long time, and these things have been in the books for a while. The big issue is we don't have enough space to accommodate the wishes of all of our clubs. So we've got over 50 clubs. And so what was decided quite a while ago is that we would have sanctioned and unsanctioned clubs, and they would use that as a tool to measure how much they gave back to the community, how well they were organized, and what percentage of the folks in those clubs really were members of Canyon Lake. The idea was to get groups of people that they were connected to the community, they were giving back to the community, that were well organized, to give them priority over those that were not, those are unsanctioned, over organizations that would like to step in and do something, over individuals. And it was just a matter of setting priorities. It can all be changed. It was a process that has been put in place. We refreshed it this last year, but it can be reconsidered. I actually think it's working pretty well.
Thank you, Chris. Our next question will come from Robert Sasser of Helping Hands. Robert?
I'm concerned that the current board has made a mistake, and I'm wondering why. I'm wondering the position of people who are running for board, what their position is on this. We are considering right now to put another $100,000 into the third remodel of the dog park, and there still is no pump track for the kids. I just can't even comprehend what that's all about. Can anybody help me?
All right, and first to respond to that question will be Tim Cook.
Sure, really understand the context of your question. I mean, there is a dog park. There are plans for a dog park coming. Does it have to be $98,000? I don't think so. Renee said it best a couple of weeks back. You know, what do we get for a $20,000 dog park? What do we get for a $50,000 dog park? You know, review these things, talk to the community a little bit more and find out what they really need. I've been going down to the dog park quite often lately and talked to a lot of members, and you know, what I'm finding out is they just want shade. They want shade and they want the water fixed for the dogs. I mean, $15,000 for a few shade covers and benches, water, fix the water. I mean, I don't doubt that the rec committee and other people have gotten some communication, but I think we need a little more before we go out and spend $98,000 for that dog park. And commuting to most of the people that I have, been a pretty simple answer, shade. And you know, I think we can do that and accomplish the goals of what the people want for a lot less than $98,000.
Thank you. Bradley Foland, your comment, please.
Yeah, you know, I totally get it. $100,000 dog park in front of the North Sierra Park project is a little concerning. Obviously, I get where the community's coming from. They're having an issue with the $1.5 to $2 million amount. And just like the measure that's going to be on the ballot that's coming up, we're looking to, or the board is looking to revise that to a $2 million 2-year limit, correct? I mean, Chris Foland can inform us a little bit more about all the ins and outs of that. But I mean, as a community, I think if we would have started the Sierra North project a few years ago, and Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, or if there needs to be more information on this, if we would have started it a couple of years ago, we'd be almost done by now. So yeah, there is an issue on that. And I truly believe that needs to get done way before the $100,000 dog park. And quite frankly, $100,000 is way too much for that park. Tim and Renee say it best. Where's the other options? Where's the other plan options at a lower cost?
Thank you very much. Next to respond is Renee Griffiths.
With regards to the pump track, while attending the meetings, I can tell you the board's been pushing for this for a long time, and I've chatted with other individuals, joined the website just to hear the history of it. I recall when it was going to be done in phases, and I think even initially starting at Sierra Park, and POA, not the board, wanted it to be part of phase 2, the actual pump track. The board fought. Well, I don't want to say fought. They instructed the POA that it needs to be part of phase 1 because they understand the passion, and quite frankly, from every meeting I've attended, they want it done as quickly as possible. So that's on that, and hopefully it's going to get approved so we can get it done all in one fell swoop. With regards to the dog park, I will say this. We may want a lot of different things. We may want it to look a lot of different ways. I certainly want that within my home, but I have a budget. So while the members can give a wish list, and it's a great wish list, we need to work within a budget. And second to that, oh, no second, my time's up. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Foland, your response, please.
I could use all my time to try and answer all the questions, but the reality is that the dog park does not come before the Sierra North Park. The Sierra North Park and the dog park all fits within our financial structure for capital improvement projects. So there isn't one or the other. The question is, do we want to spend that kind of money? We have a limitation about how much the board can actually authorize to spend before we have to go for a vote. And that's the $800,000 over a 2-year period. When the dog park project was first initiated, that's what we wanted to make sure we could see, because then the board could act without having to ask the community. The problem with asking the community, honestly, is that this community generally will not support each other's needs. And so we have a real problem with getting work done. That's why I wanted to put on the budget a chance to increase the authority that we had. I just want to say that these projects have been in place. If you were a dog park person that has been writing to us incessantly until we got the large dog park on the charts, you would not say that it's too much to spend for a dog park. This is one of the challenges of being on the board of directors. You've got to figure out how to sort these demands out, what the right middle ground is.
Thank you very much, Chris. And our final responder, Carl Gardner.
I don't think I spoke.
By all means,
I don't think I spoke on this.
go for it.
I guess I crossed your name out, but after Carl, I'll call you back.
I don't need to, but no. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Carl.
So like I've said before, existing amenities need to be maintained. That doesn't mean to need to be improved. If the dog people want, and I don't have dogs, but I'd love to have dogs, and we just don't have a big enough lot, and I don't actually want to have to take them to the dog park. But the dog park needs to be maintained. If that means fixing the water, absolutely we need to fix the water. But if it means we need to put in a bunch of shade structures, probably not until we have other liabilities or other projects that are already lined up. They need to be accomplished first. As for voting yes on increasing the budget, that's probably the only yes I would actually say go for it. Voting no across the board on everything else, especially making the GM, the CEO, do not vote yes on that. Vote no.
Thank you. And now, Brian Bach.
Okay, so there's like 14 questions there, and I'll just break it down. And even though you didn't ask 14 questions there, bottom line is Sierra, the money is there. And I know this, the money literally is there. So it's not going to cost money like we're going to lose money and have to go into debt. It's a matter of releasing the money. Now, I'll tell you this. I mean, from a practical standpoint, I'd like to see it done. Will it pass? Probably not, based on public opinion right now. And I'm sorry, that's kind of built on the whole trust thing. Bottom line is, it needs to get done sooner, because I can tell you, I was one of the first 5 people on Facebook, and it wasn't a club, it wasn't anything. It was people on Facebook. One guy had an idea, Marga and 3 other people who don't really do, the pump track thing. I had a kid who's now 18 years old who's never going to use it. We got involved. Is the time? Wow. As to the dog park, it's simple. I don't know $98,000 is great. I can tell you, I have a little guy. He's been in this nice little place. The other place has been a barren, like literally sandpot forever. So something needs to be done. I think we have the money for both, and it's a matter of getting them going and doing them in phases. And frankly, in the future, listening to the people first, rather than just putting something pretty on paper.
Thank you very much. Our 4th club president will be Alexis Prince of the Canyon Lake Women's Club. Alexis?
Okay. Do you see an urgency at this time to improve our relationships with the water district?
Okay, and first to respond to that question will be Bradley Foland.
As far as our, I believe that water district liaison that comes on the board meetings, Chris, is that correct? Is that what her, okay. It seems to be that we have a pretty good relationship with her. As far as everything else involved or with the water district, that is not my area of expertise. And that's another thing that I would like to touch on as far as the community involvement and the other board members. I know everyone's probably looking at me like this guy doesn't know anything. Truly, when it comes to the water district, I know we're paying a lot of extra money to lease water because our water treatment plant is not up and running. Oh, there's my time again. I heard it. I'll let you other guys comment on this.
We'll have 15 seconds.
I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Brian Bach.
Well, I understand overall that our relationship as a POA board could be better with the water district at present. I've heard that. I can't, get into too much detail other than to say we attend a liaison of our board, which I believe is the president, it might be someone else, attends like a joint group. And I believe there's been some challenges there with an us versus them kind of mentality. I will break that down overnight because I've never had a belief that it's us versus them. We did have litigation. We solved the litigation. We resolved it, and we can move forward. And I think that some of that went back for 20, 30 years, 40 years plus of angst and despair in that regard. In the end, I think that one problem is if one person is our liaison, then that person needs to be assessed to be, is that the person who should be the liaison? And I think that it might be needed to have the board rotate and reassess that issue, because that's what I have heard on the street.
Thank you very much. And next would be Renee Griffiths, please.
Thank you. I was actually chatting with Darcy Burke this morning. She's absolutely lovely and phenomenally brilliant. So I am glad she is our liaison to the water district. So I am encouraged by some of the ideas that she has. I know she's going to bring some different things to help our lake, and she is beyond passionate with water. I think if we match our passion, and it might be matched with hers for conservation and making sure her lake is clean, I think that's going to continue to go well. She didn't express I didn't hear anything negative from her, so maybe she's holding back, and that's fine, and I respect her for that. So I continue to improve that relationship going with her. One side note, because everyone I tell is surprised, and she mentioned it at a board meeting, it is not the board's decision that dogs are not allowed in the lake water. It comes from the state of California. So for everyone who's bummed that dogs are not allowed in the water, it's not Canyon Lake's fault. It's the state of California. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Renee. Chris Foland.
We came through a dark time in our relationship with EDMWD over the lake lease. And as Brian has said, that's over with. We have a strong relationship. We've got all of our lawsuits and all our agreements in place. We're taking care of our shoreline construction. We're getting along quite well. We just sent a letter of support for the upgrade of the water treatment plant in the spirit of making sure that we keep our water rates under control as much as possible, but also pointing out that this is our recreational facility and that makes it a dual purpose critical reservoir for the state of California, which is something that we support, they support. So I think it's a matter of maintaining that relationship. I do attend with the general manager and other members of our group, of our staff, this monthly breakfast when we get together with the city and EVMWD and the sheriff and the POA. And we have a nice conversation. It's a not necessarily completely frank conversation, but it's a good conversation and it's a good communication tool. I think we're doing great.
Thank you. Carl Gardner, your comments, please.
Yes, we can always improve relations. We just got out of litigation with them that we sued them in order to have leverage over them to negotiate a lake lease. We ended up getting that after $2 million kicked out on a demur, and we still had to negotiate with them. And the negotiations were fine. They ended up working out, but we didn't have to do that. They were willing to negotiate. What we need to do is get rid of the attorneys who still represent us, who dragged us into that litigation. And that will help moving forward to prevent frivolous lawsuits that this POA wants to engage in because of our attorneys. So absolutely we can improve relations with the water district and everyone else that we do business with, including our own members.
Thank you. And final person to respond, Tim Cook.
Yeah, I've had 2 meetings with Darcy so far. This morning, Renee and I were there with the Meet the Mayor, coffee with the mayor. And, you know, I truly believe this woman has a very difficult job. And I really believe that she's working hard for Canyon Lake. I also had a Zoom meeting a couple of weeks ago about the North Ski area. And, you know, she's deeply involved and deeply concerned about our community. I truly believe she's a representative working for us and doing the best she can for us. I also think, you know, working with the city and stuff, the 3 of us together, make a better relationship all around is going to make things work a lot easier.
Thank you. I would just comment to the board that I live on the east side of Canyon Lake, inside the East Gate, and EVMWD is not my water provider, nor many of my neighbors. So there is more than one water district that services the homes within Canyon Lake. But EVMWD does control the lake, own the lake that we lease from. And now our final question from the club presidents will be Larry Garland of the Coraliers. Larry?
Larry, you need to unmute.
I must be a senior. What is your position regarding political postings and how would you address this issue as a POA director?
And the first to respond to that would be Brian Bach.
Political postings, well, that's a very broad term. I mean, we're not even talking about where, when, and how. In sum, if we're talking about where we are presently, I'm not sure where we are presently. I know last night there was another visit of the proposal, and bottom line is there was, I think, another need for amendment. So it kind of leads to a bigger issue, which is why have we gone this far, this long on this issue, and frankly perpetuated this? And it's no offense, it wasn't intended probably, except we started with the wrong premise. We started with trying to solve a problem that was growing, but not an emergency. Then we tried to solve it with language that wasn't vetted, frankly. We needed to have, from day one, a legislative analyst hired to do this, review this, provide it, and then go to legal counsel. And I'll actually go with Carl on this one. I think it should be an independent legal counsel who isn't someone who's already involved in matters here. Bottom line is, we kind of went down the road too quick, too fast in the wrong direction. And now we need to fix it.
Thank you very much, Brian. Renee Griffiths, your comment, please.
It's interesting when you say political posting, and as Brian already said, that could mean a lot of different things. What wasn't political 2 weeks ago is considered political today. You know, I brought up, and everyone has Dr. Seuss for is now a political statement if you have something with Dr. Seuss. So I feel people should have the right to voice their opinion for anything. That's why the men and women who served our country died, and then the ones who have even survived and come back, I'm sure the last thing they want to hear is us squabbling over whether or not I can have a Pepe Le Pew flag because it's considered political. That's not why they served, for Carl in the Corps, for my husband in the Corps. That's not why he was there. So I think we need to keep that freedom of speech, because if we get into a little box of if it's political, it can't be done, then everything's going to become political.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next responder would be Chris Foland.
It's one thing to campaign and say that you want to listen to the community and you want to make sure that the members have a say and you want to hear everything they say. It's another thing to make it happen. There's been a lot written and a lot discussed about how we handled the political issue that came about with the 28-day rule that was passed last night. It was done in a very thoughtful, open manner that tried to listen to every member of the community. But that doesn't mean we could respond to every member or listen to everything that they wanted. But we have gone through a thoughtful process. Our lawyers have been with it every step along the way. We have not engaged a legislative analyst to deal with it. We have not done any surveys. We've done the best we could within the resources we have to understand what our community wants and focus on what the key issues were. And we believe we've got a good first step. What does that mean about political posting? I think that's our first step. And that hopefully is going to take us much closer to restoring the peace and harmony we need around this issue.
Thank you. Carl Gardner, your comments, please.
Absolutely. So I've said before, the POA's job is to pave our roads. It's not to get involved in words. And this is the summation of that issue. The POA shouldn't have gotten involved in this, and I will stand by that. That's really just as simple as it is.
And next, Tim Cook, please.
There were some actions taken by the board that caused a lot of division in this community about this political flag issue and political signs, banners, posters, whatever we want to call it. I'm going to try to downtone this a little bit here. With the work the board did last night, if it stays that way, I'd be content with the way things are. And I think we should just let the lake calm down a little bit and relax and let this go for a while. If it passes, what Chris and Tom and all the guys on the board worked on last night, I think it's acceptable to the community, and let's get out of this battle. Let's calm the community down and let's work together on and getting unity back together. And let's not stretch this vote out anymore. We got the 28-day rule. Chris, you guys, this is up to you, man. Finish this off, knock it out, and let's move on. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final responder for this evening is Bradley Foland.
Yeah, I feel the same way. From what Tim just said, I think the rule revision on the 28-day reading last night, it covers both sides of the situation. Now the political postings, is an all-encompassing question. And I believe the board, with the emergency board meeting for the flag issue, I don't believe that should have happened, period. It fueled the fire within our community. And, people should have the right to be able to put whatever flag on their house that they want. Of course, with the exception of profanity and fighting words, obvious fighting words. But I think where we came from, or where we came to last night, I think we're going in the right direction. And again, I think we're close, and let's just put this issue to bed, and let's all be neighbors and friendly again. Let's bring our community back together.
Thank you. And now we're going to ask the candidates for their closing comments. You each have 90 seconds, and we'll reverse the ballot order and start with Renee Griffiths.
Keep it short and sweet. Thank you, everyone, for taking your time to listen to everyone. And thank you so much for all the committees who have stepped forward to ask us all these thought-provoking questions. I appreciate that. I hope everyone continues to read the Canyon Lake Insider and see our statements to get a better understanding of what we think and feel. Certainly, we've put our names out there so you can reach out to each and every one of us and ask us direct questions. Thank you so much for your consideration. And I look forward to seeing how everything turns out.
Thank you, Renee. Bradley Foland, your 90-second reason.
Okay, thank you. You know, truthfully, I want to run on behalf of our community and their voice, period, on anything we do that comes across the board. I know there's little things, if elected, that the board has to deal with on a daily basis that the community necessarily doesn't want to have to be involved in. I get that. But I truly believe every part of running a POA board needs to come across every member of our community. And I appreciate you guys setting this platform up for us to speak our mind on our different issues of the lake. And just like Renee said, please go out and check all the various Facebook pages. We have a lot of us candidates have things going on. And there's a few podcasts out there that falls in line with this forum with question and answering. And there's a lot of good stuff out there. So I appreciate it again, and thank you.
Thank you. Carl Gardner, your closing comments, please.
Yes, thank you for holding this forum. I was concerned that there wouldn't be anything like this. I also want to thank all of the other candidates. This has been a very positive experience so far. I've spoken to pretty much everyone. I unfortunately haven't had the time to speak to Bradley, I'm sorry, I don't think I've spoken. Yeah. So anyway, I'm glad that we've all gotten along, and I look forward to finishing this. Everyone getting along, and my position is very simple. The members matter. Our money matters. So where it goes matters. The amenities that we enjoy, we all have a right to them. It's in our bylaws, and it just simply needs to be maintained. And it's going to be a tough next year. We're coming out of the COVID times, but it's still not easy for everybody. So a vote for anyone except sitting board members will be a positive vote for this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Poland, your closing comments, please.
I think it's absolutely fundamental for the next board to take time right at the beginning of their orientation to reconsider the board principles. This is something that each board should do. This board has said that we have declared that this community is in the midst of transition. This is going to be very familiar to you because I talk about it all the time. From a vacation and retirement community to a diverse suburban community, we are transitioning. We're 50 years old. We have set as a vision that we aspire to become one united, sought-after resort-style community for permanent residents that respects and meets the expectations of a diverse membership through enhanced amenities and increased property values. That's what this board set down, and I will challenge the next board to take this and rewrite it and give themselves a benchmark to make their decisions by. If you want to change the structure of what we charge ourselves individually for fees, and not what we charge the membership at large to help support our community, it's rooted in this. Because what we can afford to charge, what we're willing to pay is fees. When we talk about being profitable in the very restaurants that we own, we're talking about making a profit on ourselves. You know, it's okay. We can have those things. We can do those things. But what I'm saying is I think we need to focus on what our vision is. The next board needs to focus on what vision is for the community, to give them a broad basis of understanding to make the decisions that they need to make. Love all the new ideas that I heard. I love the spirit of this meeting, and I look forward to the good things that are coming forward for Canyon Lake from this election.
Thank you, Chris. And Tim Cook, your closing comments, please.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I want to thank Ron Martell for putting this whole thing together, and all the club presidents for all the great questions that we had. I started off quite nervous. I'm still freaking out a little bit about this. But really, and I want to thank all the residents out there for all the support that they've been giving me in my campaign. And I just really look forward to serving the community, look forward to doing the best job I can to make Canyon Lake the best of what we have. I just truly love this community, and this is home for me. I'm spending the rest of my life here, and I just so grateful that I have a place like Canyon Lake to retire and to do that. There's nothing else like this in the whole state. We have the best private community in the state of California. And thank you all for your time. Thank all the residents for watching. I appreciate it.
And our final closing comments are from Brian Bach.
Thank you. I will simply say that we need candidates that are elected to this board that stand for the following: integrity, fairness, transparency, civility, the ability to confront difficult decisions and discussions, work within legal parameters, strive to find an amicable solution before the rule, before the violation, and so forth, etc. And ultimately build gaps, bridge gaps rather, and build unity. I will work every day, and I believe every night and weekend too. In the last year, changed my life. I became a Canyon Lake business owner, 2 different businesses, but in particular a law firm that I'm running. But ultimately, it's to bring myself to the next phase, which is the next 10 years of my transition to retirement. I want to retire where I thought I was retiring to, which was, quote, a little bit of paradise. There's a great story behind that concept. In the end, we're all neighbors, we're all friends, or at least we used to be. And in some ways it's social media, but honestly, it's this constant battle to try to fix things before trying to resolve the problem first. And I give every credit to the board for trying, but I think it's time for change. Someone said, why be the change? Well, I ask you all that. Be the change is about all of you. We can elect people, but we have to change this paradigm, bring it back to what we started with, a little bit of paradise. I want to come home at night and feel comfortable.
Thank you very much, Brian. I just want to thank all of the candidates for stepping forward to serve our community. And I think tonight you have really provided a good opportunity for the community to see you, to get to know you a little bit better, to understand your views on the issues confronting the community. And I just, again, thank you very much for doing that. I also want to thank the club presidents for their participation tonight and for the insightful questions that they asked. And finally, to all of those of you who are at home, remember to vote. It's your community. And again, thank you to our producer director, Ron Martell, for his creative approach to this project during these challenging times, and to Larry Garland for recording this Zoom meeting to be posted on various media sites starting on Friday, April the 9th. Again, thank you all for watching, and good evening.